Dear learners, in the previous lecture, we discussed about the issues of marginalization and gender. Today, we will discuss Module 39, that is, Issues of Religion and Language. Since the beginning of human civilization, religion has played a key role in forming institutions, cultures, and personal identities. Understanding the role of religion in societal development, conflict, and cohesion is a major concern for sociologists studying religion. We may learn more about how religion affects different facets of society and human existence by applying a sociological lens to the study of religious institutions, behaviors, and beliefs. Diversity and plurality in religion are becoming more and more common in today's globalized world. Diverse religious practices and beliefs, which frequently coexist in the same social context, define societies. The diversity offers chances as well as difficulties for promoting interfaith communication, comprehension, and collaboration. Despite its ability to bring people together, religion can also breed discord and strife in society. Throughout history, disputes sparked by religious disagreements have resulted in persecution, violence, and war. Religious tensions exaggerate social divisions and animosities in modern society, where they frequently connect with other types of social inequality like race, class, and ethnicity. Similarly, another foundational aspect of human communication and social interaction is language. Language is the main tool people use to express their idea, feelings, and thoughts. Sociologists and anthropologists view language as a reflection of social structure, power relationships, and cultural identities, in addition to being a tool for communication. Language can maintain social divisions and inequality despite its unifying aspects. For instance, linguistic discrimination marginalizes people or groups according to their dialect, accent, or level of language ability, which perpetuates social hierarchies and power structures. Language obstacles can make it more difficult for people to obtain healthcare, work, education, and other necessities, which exaggerates social inequality and reduces the chances for underserved groups. Linguistic diversity and multilingualism are becoming more common in today's globalized society. Diverse languages, dialects, and linguistic practices represent the cultural diversity and globalization of societies. In order to promote cross-linguistic understanding, communication, and collaboration, multilingualism offers both benefits and obstacles. Now, let us discuss what is a multi-religious society. Most people have historically lived in cultures where one religion predominated. They did not frequently interact with people of different religions, though they would on occasion encounter them. The laws, marriage, customs, and educational systems of a community are frequently influenced by predominant religion in that area. Many regions of the world have seen significant increase in social diversity in the past century. The expansion of multi-faith society has been facilitated by international migration, travel abroad, marriages between people of different cultures, and the growing acceptance of religious differences. While Christianity continues to be the most popular religion in the UK, there are growing numbers of other religious movements, and Christians and atheists may find themselves in the minority in some localities. Issues of a multi-religious society. Number 1. Practical difficulties in meeting the demands of all believers. For instance, schools may have to serve kosher and halal food, and companies and schools have to coordinate several holy days and festivals. A town may require a variety of space of worship. Number 2. Incompatible customs. It might be challenging to integrate certain religious rituals or customs into society. For instance, although most Muslims do not do so, Islam permits a man to have up to 4 wives, but bigamy is forbidden in the United Kingdom. Number 3. Identity loss. There is a concern among many individuals that a greater degree of diversity may lead to a loss of national identity. Marriage and family life. If two people of different religions fall in love, there may be additional challenges such as deciding on the wedding ceremony and child rearing plan. such as whether to have children circumcised or baptized and whether to send them to a religious school. Now, we will discuss issues of multi-religious society like India. India has historically been the birthplace of numerous different religious traditions. Indian society is arguably the most multi-religious of all societies. This nation has earned its reputation for tolerance and religious diversity, both of which are exemplified by the coexistence of a wide range of faiths, some of which have been very dissimilar from one another. This is not to suggest that religious conflicts and friction have never existed in Indian culture, but there is a little evidence of bloody religious battles and conflicts when one looks at the wide sweep of Indian history, which spans more than 3 millennia. Not even the arrival of the Muslim brought up the significant religious conflict. The situation started to change around the turn of 20th century. Religious strife started to germinate as a result of British modernization process, unleashing of economic and political competition. In a little over 50 years, communal strife and bloodshed overtook Indian civilization. Hindu Mahasabha and Muslim League, for example, were effective in communalizing Indian politics. Ironically, one of the deadliest blood trails in human history coincided with India's 1947 freedom from British domination. Both the division itself and the events leading up to it caused great animosity and enmity between Muslims and Hindus. For once it appeared as though the practice of religious coexistence had been permanently eradicated. However, the national leadership, inspired and guided by Nehru, chose to declare India as a secular state, that is, in a state which all religions and citizenship, irrespective of their faith, would be treated equally and impartially, when Free India's first ever constitution was framed just 2 years after partition. The acrimony of recent hostilities and communal prejudice was set aside in the formulation of the constitution. India made the decision to pursue a secular path and maintain its multi-religious society, which ensures that all of its residents have equality before law, freedom of religion, and common citizenship. Now, let us discuss secularism in India. The struggle between church and the state, including the general public, led to the rise of secularism in the West. There is no history of such persecution by organized religion in Indian society. Neither Brahmins nor Muslims ulema have ever been able to operate as an official clergy in both Hinduism and Islam and have any real influence over the lives of the population. Thus, there has never before been a significant dispute between the king or the people and religious authorities during pre-Muslim times. Secondly, Indian society has historically practiced religious coexistence, even at intergroup level, up to the present day. Except in a few rare cases, Muslim monarchs have upheld a policy of tolerance and coexistence even when Islam was not officially recognized as the state religion. Hindus eventually gained a variety of posts in the government apparatus, and Muslim doctrine generally advocated for live and let live. Afterwards, when the British took over India, they too adopted a neutral stance towards religious practices of the different ethnicities. In addition, the British established the idea and practice of equality before law, granting all citizens the same rights regardless of caste or creed. Before the British, this had not been the situation in India. Thus, in addition to the previous historical legacy of religious cohabitation, two significant components were brought about by the British rule: equality before the law and state neutrality towards religion. This acted as a prototype for India's contemporary secular state. Now, let us discuss the issues of minorities in India. It is possible that neither the law nor government employee discriminate. However, minority experience such intense psychological insecurity that they believe they are the object of discrimination. According to sociological theory, minority groups members' motivation, goals, and accomplishments are impacted by their impression of discrimination, which is just as harmful as actual discrimination. Nehru had correctly noted that the true test of Indian secularism was not how the majority believed, but rather how the minority now felt. Prejudice and discrimination are seen to be at play in intergroup violence and conflict, in addition to issues with employment and education. There is now enough evidence to demonstrate that occasionally, during communal riots, the state's administrative apparatus does not function impartially. Instead, people tasked with maintaining law and order often behave in an anti-secular manner, preying on members of marginalized communities. It is true that discrimination and prejudice against different groups have their roots in Pakistani movement and British rule. However, genuine attempts to cultivate a secular perspective would have allowed our people to transcend local perspectives and become assimilated into a shared Indian identity. Achieving secular agreements by merely declaring secularism as a governmental policy and permitting religion to maintain its hegemony over all facets of our public and national lives is a challenging approach. Actually, a broad acceptance of a secular worldview is a prerequisite for the establishment of the secular state itself. The secular state represented the pinnacle of secularization process in the West as well. Imtiaz Ahmed has noted pertinently that exceptional energy and efforts were required to promote secularism because of the singular and radical decision to make India a secular state. It was necessary to deliberately and methodically oppose and restrain the anti-secular trends that were pervasive in our society. Now, let us discuss issues of linguistic pluralism in India. Throughout the first 2 decades of country's independence, India's national leaders faced a number of linguistic issues as well as what seemed to be a genuine threat of balkanization, to some of them following partition. The official language problem calls for the linguistic reorganization of Indian provinces whose borders during the British administration did not follow linguistic divisions, and the position of minority languages within reorganized states were among these issues. The majority of linguistic disputes during Nehru era, some of which turned violent and acrimonious at points, were eventually settled by pluralistic means. Whenever feasible, the nation leadership of the Congress and the federal government took on mediating and arbitrating positions in the place of engaging directly in the conflict with the leaders of the language movements. Regarding the state level linguistic reorganization movements, the center worked to keep state government under the direction of strong leaders. It supported in their efforts to uphold civil order until agreements were reached between opposing language groups and their leaders. The intensification of this confrontation over the past 20 years has been attributed to the centralizing tendencies of the Indian state under Mrs. Gandhi's leadership, as well as the interventionist and manipulative tactics adopted by the federal government and its representatives in state politics. Now, let us discuss issue of languages of India and national language. When the major languages of India were effectively reorganized or recognized by the framers of the Constitution as languages of India or national languages of India, the issue of a national language was resolved. But because the nation's official affair could not be conducted in so many languages, the issue could not be resolved there. There must be a single language that the federal government may use to communicate and interact with state government. What would this pan-Indian communication language be, was the question that was emerged. Alternatively said, what language would be India's link and official language? The job was open to only 2 candidates, Hindi and English. The Constituent Assembly passionately debated which one ought to be selected. The National Movement's leadership, however, had already made that choice before India gained its independence, because they thought that English would no longer be the only language used throughout the country in a free India. Although Gandhi recognized the importance of English as a global language that allowed Indians to access both current Western ideas and world science and culture, he remained convinced that a people's genius could not blossom nor their culture blossom in a foreign language. A national agreement was represented in the 1928 Nehru Report, which declared that English would be used temporarily and the Hindustani, which may be written either in Urdu or Devanagari script, would be the common language of India. It is significant to note that the viewpoint was later endorsed by the Constitution of Free India, except that Hindi was substituted for Hindustani. On November 27, 1967, despite economic hardship and the Congress Party's electoral defeat in 1967, Indira Gandhi presented a draft revised the 1963 Official Language Act. By vote of 205 to 41 on December 16, 1967, the Lok Sabha approved the bill. The Act gave Nehru's September 1959 assurance a solid legal basis. It provided that official work at the center would continue to utilize as an associate language alongside Hindi, and that communicate between the central and non-Hindi states would continue for as long as the non-Hindi states wish. This effectively gave the non-Hindi states total veto power over the matter. Now, let us discuss language-based movements in India. India, with its rich linguistic diversity, has witnessed several movements centered around language, each reflecting the aspiration of linguistic communities to preserve their heritage and assert their identity. These movements, spanning different regions and languages, have played a pivotal role in shaping socio-political landscape of the country, advocating for linguistic equality, cultural recognition, and political representation. The genesis of languages-based movements in India can be tracked back to the colonial era when British policies favored the promotion of English and Hindi at the expense of regional languages. The marginalization of indigenous languages ignited a sense of discontent among linguistic communities, promoting them to mobilize for recognition and promotion of their respective languages. Some key movements and their impact. Number 1. The Dravidian movement in South India. The Dravidian movement, spearheaded by leaders like Periyar Ramaswamy in Tamil Nadu, championed the cause of Dravidian languages and cultures. It advocated for the primacy of Tamil and other Dravidian languages, challenging the dominance of Sanskrit and Hindi. This movement not only catalyzed the linguistic renaissance in South India but also contributed to the assertion of regional identity and autonomy. The Bengali language movement in West Bengal and Bangladesh. The Bengali language movement, epitomized by the historic language movement in 1952 in erstwhile East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, was a watershed movement in the struggle for linguistic rights. The movement, sparked by the imposition of Urdu as the sole official language, resulted in widespread protest and ultimately led to the recognition of Bengali as one of the official languages of Pakistan. Number 3. The Assamese language movement in Assam. The Assamese language movement sought to establish Assamese as the state language, challenging the dominance of Bengali during the colonial period. Led by the cultural icons like Vishnu Prasad Rava and Lakshminath Bezbarua, this movement culminated in the enactment of Assam Official Language Act in 1960, which granted official status to Assamese and reinforced its position as the language of the state. Number 4. The Punjabi Subha movement in Punjab. The Punjabi Subha movement, led by the leaders such as Master Tara Singh and Sant Fateh Singh, advocated for the linguistic and territorial organization of Punjab to create a Punjabi majority state. The movement, fueled by the demands for linguistic equality and regional autonomy, ultimately led to the formation of Punjab as a distinct linguistic state in 1966, comprising predominantly Punjabi-speaking regions. Despite the achievements of language-based movements in India, challenges persist in ensuring linguistic equality and inclusivity. The coexistence of numerous languages and dialects, coupled with socio-economic disparities, necessitates proactive measures to safeguard linguistic diversity and promote multilingualism. Moreover, the emergence of globalization and digital technologies poses both opportunities and challenges for the preservation and revitalization of indigenous languages in the digital age. Now, let us discuss the issues of linguistic minorities in India. Despite their cultural significance, linguistic minorities in India often face challenges and marginalization. Limited access to education in their mother tongues, linguistic discrimination, and the dominance of a major languages in administrative and educational domains pose barrier to the preservation and promotion of minority languages. Economic disparities and urbanization further exaggerate the vulnerabilities of linguistic minorities, leading to language shift and endangerment in some communities. For example, many indigenous tribal communities like Tripuris, Riangs, Jamatias, and others each have their own unique language and cultural heritage, and Tripura is home to them. The modernization forces, the growing impact of Bengali, however, have made it more difficult to preserve and advance these native tongues. Preserving Tripura's linguistic diversity requires concerted efforts to bring back the life of tribal languages through literature, education, and cultural projects. The Constitution of India enshrines the right to preserve and promote one's language and culture as a fundamental right. The Linguistic Minorities Commission and various state-level language commissions are tasked with safeguarding the interests of linguistic minorities and recommending measures for their protection. Additionally, the initiatives such as the preservation of endangered languages, promotion of multilingual education, and inclusion of minority languages in educational curricula aim to address the linguistic needs and aspirations of minority communities. That's all. Thank you for today.